One individual remained in obscurity for generations, manipulating circumstances across an entire territory, while the planet barely recognized his identity. He controlled forces without displaying a general's attire in view. He negotiated arrangements that altered the destiny of countries from concealed chambers in Damascus, Baghdad, and Beirut. Intelligence organizations from 3 continents invested billions attempting to monitor his whereabouts. When he ultimately appeared from obscurity, it was already delayed. The board had been arranged. The Middle East would never be identical. On a frigid January dawn in 2020, a procession of automobiles departed Baghdad International Airport. Inside, one of them occupied the individual Western intelligence, designated Akin Voy, the most hazardous operative in the Middle East. Minutes afterward, an American drone attack terminated his existence. But this isn't merely a narrative about an elimination. This is the concealed narrative of how a youth from a neglected settlement in the Iranian highlands became the designer of a new global structure, a military prodigy who transformed the authority configuration of an entire territory, and an individual whose demise sent shock tremors that are still resonating today. Before we proceed further, I must be transparent about something. What you're observing here is only the visible layer of this narrative. For channel subscribers, I analyze what occurs next, the schedules decision creators are actually operating with, and the situations that won't be addressed openly. If you desire access to that deeper examination, you can subscribe to the channel by selecting the subscribe button below. The year is 1957. In a distant settlement called Qanat Malik, deep in Iran's Kerman territory, a child is delivered to a household that belongs to the Soleimani clan, ethnic Lurs, who have occupied these severe mountain regions for generations. The settlement has no electricity. Water originates from ancient underground passages that provide the community its identity. This is a realm of absolute destitution, where continuation itself is a daily battle. The youth's father, Mashadi Hassan, is a cultivator crushed under obligation from government agricultural advances. Every collection barely addresses the interest. The household distributes a single portion of nourishment between siblings. There are no aspirations of magnificence here, only the harsh calculations of continuation. The youth's identity is Qasem Soleimani, and nothing in his initial years indicates he will one day control the destiny of millions. At 13 years aged, Qasem makes a choice that will characterize the remainder of his existence. His father's obligation has achieved 900 tomans, a quantity that seems impossible. In Iran, under the Shah, outstanding government advances can lead to confinement. Young Qasem cannot tolerate the notion of his father behind barriers for the offense of destitution. So he abandons education, bids farewell to his mother, and journeys to Kermit City. For the initial occasion in his existence, he observes automobiles traveling through passages. He observes structures taller than any construction in his settlement. He has never sampled kormi sabzi, Iran's national cuisine. He is utterly unprepared for the realm beyond the highlands. But he possesses something more precious than preparation. He possesses determination created in the furnace of deprivation. Qasem discovers employment at a construction location where a school is being constructed. For 8 months, he toils under the burning sun, combining cement, transporting bricks, his young hands forming blisters and bleeding. Every rial he generates goes toward his father's obligation. No new garments, no additional nourishment, just labor, preserve, and labor again. His relative Ahmad labors beside him, distributing the weight of household duty. Together, they generate enough to settle both their father's obligations. When Qasem ultimately returns to his settlement, he does so with his head maintained high. He has rescued his father from confinement. He has discovered something crucial about himself. He is prepared to sacrifice everything for those he cherishes. This capacity for self-sacrifice, delivered in destitution and strengthened by difficulty, will become his characterizing attribute. But Qasem doesn't return to settlement existence. In 1975, at 18, he obtains a position with the Kerman Water Organization, a stable government occupation that represents ascending mobility for a youth from the highlands. He labors hard, preserves his currency, and in his available time, he discovers 2 enthusiasms. The initial is physical conditioning. He commences training in karate and bodybuilding, converting his lean structure into something formidable. Fellow gymnasium participants remember a silent, concentrated young individual who advances himself beyond standard boundaries. The second enthusiasm is more hazardous. He starts participating in the addresses of a preacher named Hojet Kamyab, a student of an individual who will one day become Iran's supreme authority, Ali Khamenei. These addresses speak of revolution, of overthrowing the Shah, of establishing an Islamic republic. For Qasem, who has observed firsthand how the Shah's modernization initiatives crushed the rural destitute under obligation, the statement resonates. The foundations of revolution take foundation. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution sweeps across Iran like wildfire. The Shah, whose secret police terrorized opponents, whose modernization abandoned the countryside in obligation, whose partnership with America represented Iran's subservience to the West, is overthrown. Ayatollah Khamenei returns from banishment. The passages of Tehran explode in celebration, and Qasem Soleimani, now 22 years aged, subscribes to the newly established Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. His training is minimal, barely 6 weeks, but he is designated as an instructor almost instantly. There is something about him, a natural power, a silent competence that makes others desire to follow him. His initial deployment transmits him to Mahabad, a Kurdish municipality in northwestern Iran, where he assists suppress separatist uprisings. It is brutal labor, but Soleimani performs it without hesitation. The revolution must be protected. Then on September 22, 1980, everything transforms. Saddam Hussein's Iraq, supported by Western authorities and Arab nations terrified of Iran's revolutionary passion spreading, attacks Iran. The Iran-Iraq conflict commences, a confrontation that will last 8 years and claim close to 1 million existences. Soleimani, still in his initial 20s, is provided command of a company of individuals from CARE. He guides them to the front positions. What occurs next defies all anticipations. While other Revolutionary Guard commanders regard their individuals as expendable, initiating human wave assaults that transmit thousands to their demise, clearing minefields, Soleimani takes a different method. He performs reconnaissance assignments deep behind enemy positions. He returns with live goats to nourish his unit, generating the nickname, the Goat Burglar. Before conflicts, he embraces each individual individually, bidding them farewell. When his units experience heavy casualties, witnesses state he weeps. This is not the conduct of a typical revolutionary commander. Soleimani is constructing something more than military units. He is constructing loyalty, the kind of fanatical devotion that cannot be purchased or commanded, only generated through distributed sacrifice. His individuals would follow him anywhere. They trust him with their existences because they understand he values their existences. During Operation Folan, one of the conflict's most difficult conflicts, Soleimani's tactical brilliance shines through. He guides his forces in retaking territory the Iraqis had controlled, using unconventional tactics, velocity, and surprise to overcome superior firepower. His success captures the attention of senior commanders. At 24, he is promoted to command a brigade. A year afterward, at 25, he commands an entire division, the 41st Thurala Division, comprising forces from Kerman, Sistan, and Baluchistan and Hormuzan territories. The conflicts he confronts during these years become legendary. Operation Fajr 8, Karbala 4, Karbala 5. Each operation displays his growing mastery of irregular warfare. He doesn't possess the weapons or equipment of the Iraqi force, supported as it is by American intelligence and French weapons. What he possesses is creativity, ruthlessness when necessary, compassion when possible, and an almost supernatural capacity to interpret the battlefield. But the conflict takes its burden. During one operation, Soleimani is seriously wounded. His relative Ahmad, who labored beside him on construction locations, who distributed his aspirations of a better Iran, perishes in combat in October 1984. The loss devastates Soleimani. Years afterward, he will identify one of his sons after Ahmad, maintaining his relative's memory alive. As the conflict continues, Soleimani commences to challenge the strategy of his superiors. He observes existences wasted in pointless assaults. He observes commanders with no transparent plan for victory. Despite being young and junior, he challenges his superiors, risking his career to speak truth to authority. Remarkably, instead of being punished, he is promoted again. The Iranian military leadership recognizes that Soleimani possesses something rare, a combination of tactical genius and moral power that makes him invaluable. By the occasion the conflict concludes in 1988, after 8 years of brutal stalemate, Qasem Soleimani has appeared as one of Iran's most decorated conflict heroes. He is 31 years aged, a brigadier general, and he has already confronted in more conflicts than most soldiers observe in a lifetime. But while other conflict heroes retire to comfortable positions, Soleimani's labor is just commencing. After the conflict, he is appointed IRGC commander in Kerman territory. His new assignment seems almost pedestrian compared to the grand conflicts he confronted against Iraq, combat drug smuggling along Iran's border with Afghanistan. But Soleimani approaches this task with the same intensity he brought to conventional warfare. He guides operations deep into the Afghan border territories, dismantling smuggling networks, eliminating drug lords, converting the southeastern frontier into a fortress. It is during these years in the obscurity that Soleimani develops the abilities that will later make him famous. Covert operations, intelligence gathering, constructing networks of local allies, unconventional warfare. He is discovering how to project authority without deploying forces. In 1998, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei makes a choice that will reshape the Middle East. He appoints Qasem Soleimani, now 41 years aged, as commander of the Quds Force, the elite unit of the IRGC responsible for operations outside Iran's borders. The Quds Force is Iran's primary instrument for extending its influence across the territory. Its identity originates from Quds, the Arabic and Persian expression for Jerusalem, reflecting Iran's commitment to the Palestinian cause and its opposition to Israel. Under previous leadership, the Quds Force had supported Hezbollah in Lebanon and maintained some contacts with Shia groups in Iraq. Under Soleimani, it will become something far more ambitious, the vanguard of Iranian authority projection across the entire Middle East. Soleimani's strategy is revolutionary in its scope. Instead of relying solely on conventional military force, which Iran cannot match against countries like the United States or Israel, he constructs something new, a network of proxy forces, local militias, and political movements that distribute Iran's interests, that can be armed, trained, and advised by Iranian operatives, but that confront under their own flags in their own countries for causes that resonate with local populations. It is asymmetric warfare on a grand strategic scale. In Lebanon, Soleimani deepens Iran's relationship with Hezbollah, converting it from a militia into something approaching a state within a state. After Israel's blockade of Gaza in 2007, Soleimani's operatives assist Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad construct a vast network of tunnels, 60 kilometers in total, for smuggling weapons and initiating operations against Israel. According to senior Hamas officials, Soleimani himself conceived the tunnel strategy alongside the legendary Hezbollah commander Imad Mughnieh. But Soleimani's greatest opportunity arrives in 2003 when the United States attacks Iraq and topples Saddam Hussein. Almost overnight, the Sunni-dominated dictatorship that confronted Iran for 8 years is replaced by chaos. The Iraqi state collapses, sectarian violence explodes, and Iraq's Shia majority, long oppressed under Saddam, suddenly possesses a chance at authority. Soleimani observes the opening and moves with lightning velocity. He establishes networks with Iraqi Shia political leaders. He arms and trains militias. He coordinates assaults on American forces. According to American officials, under Soleimani's direction, Iran supplies Iraqi insurgents with specially designed roadside bombs, improvised explosive devices that can penetrate armor. These weapons eliminate more than 600 American service members. They maim thousands more. Soleimani is directly responsible for more American military deaths than any other individual in the 21st century. But here is where Soleimani's genius becomes apparent. He is not simply attacking Americans, he is constructing political authority. By 2008, with the situation in Iraq spiraling toward catastrophe, Soleimani transmits a statement to General David Petraeus, then the top American commander in Iraq. The statement is astonishingly bold. "You should understand that I, Qasem Soleimani, control the policy for Iran with respect to Iraq, Lebanon, Gaza, and Afghanistan." He writes, "This is not empty boasting. U.S. State Department cables from Baghdad describe Soleimani as the point individual for Iran's policy in Iraq, with authorities second only to Supreme Leader Khamenei. When sectarian violence between Sunnis and Shia threatens to tear Iraq apart, Soleimani assists broker ceasefires. When the Iraqi government requires to negotiate with militias, Soleimani occupies at the table. He has become the obscurity ruler of Iraq. But what truly sets Soleimani apart from other intelligence operatives is his personal bravery. Unlike other spy masters who direct operations from secure locations, Soleimani is on the ground in the combat zones, often without body armor. Militia commanders describe him as fearless. Photographs appear showing him on the front positions in Iraq, conferring with local commanders, seemingly unconcerned about elimination attempts or American air attacks. This personal presence is crucial to Soleimani's mystique. He is not requesting others to take dangers he himself won't take. Equally comfortable planning strategy in Thrawn and confronting alongside militia forces in Fallujah. Then arrives the Arab Spring of 2011. In Syria, what commences as peaceful demonstrations against President Bashar al-Assad escalates into armed rebellion. Assad, a key Iranian ally and the linchpin of Iran's access to Lebanon and Hezbollah, faces the possibility of being overthrown. It would be a strategic catastrophe. Soleimani acts decisively. In the initial days of the Syrian uprising, he journeys to Damascus and convenes with Syrian officials. He coordinates the brutal suppression of protesters. When suppression fails and Syria descends into full civil conflict, Soleimani commits Iran and Hezbollah to rescuing Assad. He deploys thousands of fighters from Lebanon, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. He establishes training camps. He coordinates military offensives. One Free Syrian Army commander informs journalists, "Soleimani is operating Syria. Bashar al-Assad is just his mayor." The Syrian force is plagued by defections. Assad's regime appears on the verge of collapse. Soleimani requires a game changer. He requires a major authority with air superiority to shift the balance. He requires Russia. In July 2015, Qasem Soleimani boards a commercial flight to Moscow. This journey violates United Nations travel sanctions imposed on him for his function in Iran, his nuclear initiative, and the Syrian conflict. But Soleimani doesn't care about sanctions. He possesses a chart of Syria and a plan to rescue Assad. In Moscow, Soleimani convenes with President Vladimir Putin and Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. According to Iranian sources, Soleimani unfurls his chart and explains the military situation in stark terms. Assad is losing, he informs the Russians. Without intervention, the Syrian government will collapse, but the conflict is not lost. Soy outlines a strategy. Russian air authority combined with Iranian ground forces and Syrian militias can convert the tide. According to a former Iranian defense minister, Putin is initially skeptical. The expenses of intervention are high. Russia possesses its own problems. Why should Moscow risk its pilots and resources for a distant Middle Eastern dictator? Soleimani's response reveals his diplomatic abilities. He frames the Syrian confrontation not as Iran's problem, but as Russia's problem. ISIS, he argues, is a threat to the entire planet, including Russia. If Syria collapses, jihadists will spread across the territory and beyond. Russia itself could face assaults from radicalized fighters returning from Syria. Moreover, Soleimani promises that he will make it occur on the ground. Russia only requires to provide air support. Iranian forces and allied militias will do the confronting. The expense to Russia will be limited. The strategic benefits, maintaining a key Middle Eastern ally and demonstrating Russian authority projection, will be enormous. Putin reportedly responds, "Okay, we will intervene." Transmit Qasem Soleimani. Over the following weeks, Soleimani makes multiple journeys to Moscow, 4 in total according to sources, finalizing the details of what will become Russia's intervention in Syria. On September 30, 2015, Russian aircraft commenced striking targets in Syria. The intervention transforms everything. With Russian air superiority covering Iranian-backed ground forces, the tide converts in Assad's favor. Aleppo, Syria's largest municipality, is recaptured. Rebel strongholds collapse one by one. By 2017, Assad's regime is secure. Soleimani has accomplished what seemed impossible. He has rescued Iran's most important ally and created a new strategic partnership with Russia. His influence now spans from Tehran to Baghdad to Damascus to Beirut. He has established what Iran designates the axis of resistance, a network of allied governments and militias that can project authority throughout the territory. But Soleimani's greatest triumph arrives not against American forces or Syrian rebels, but against an enemy that terrifies the entire planet, the Islamic State, ISIS. In 2014, ISIS explodes across Iraq and Syria with shocking velocity. In June, the terrorist group captures Mosul, Iraq's second-largest municipality. Iraqi force units, despite superior numbers and American training, collapse and flee. ISIS declares a caliphate. Its black flags fly over territory the magnitude of Britain. Western intelligence organizations warn that ISIS could march on Baghdad itself. The Iraqi government, corrupt and divided, seems incapable of mounting effective resistance. Into this chaos steps Qasem Soleimani. Within hours of Mosul's collapse, Soleimani is on a plane to Baghdad. He moves with characteristic decisiveness, convening with Iraqi military commanders, Shia militia leaders, and Kurdish forces. He coordinates the defense of Baghdad, organizing a defensive position that maintains against ISIS assaults. While the American coalition debates its response, Soleimani is already on the ground directing operations, moving weapons and fighters to critical positions. The Los Angeles Times reports that Amirli, an Iraqi town under ISIS siege, becomes the initial to successfully withstand an ISIS assault thanks to an unusual partnership of Iraqi and Kurdish soldiers, Iranian-backed Shia militias, and U.S. warplanes. But according to senior Iraqi officials, it was Iran's rapid response under Soleimani, not American air attacks, that prevented a wider collapse. Soleimani organizes the popular mobilization forces, the Hashd al-Shabi, bringing together dozens of Shia militias under a unified command configuration. Clears throat. These forces become the spearhead of Iraq's counteroffensive against ISIS. Conflict by conflict, municipality by municipality, they advance back the black tide. Trit, Saddam's hometown, is recaptured in a major operation that Soleimani personally assists plan. Fallujah, a municipality that observed some of the bloodiest confronting during the American occupation, is liberated. Mosul, after months of brutal urban warfare, is retaken. Throughout these campaigns, photographs appear showing Soleimani on the front positions, conferring with commanders seemingly unconcerned about the hazard. By 2017, the regions ISIS once controlled have been recaptured. The caliphate has collapsed. For many in Iraq and Syria, Qasem Soleimani is the individual who rescued them from ISIS. Iranian media promotes him as a hero. Social media in Iraq and Lebanon celebrates him as Hajj Qasem, using the honorific title reserved for someone who has completed the pilgrimage to Mecca, though in Soleimani's case, it signifies respect rather than religious devotion. He becomes one of the most recognizable faces in the Middle East. According to polls conducted in Iran in October 2019, 82% of Iranians view him favorably, with 59% viewing him very favorably. He is Iran's most popular living figure, more beloved than any politician, more celebrated than any celebrity. For the United States and Israel, however, Soleimani represents something terrifying. An operational genius who has extended Iranian influence across the territory, armed and trained militias that threaten American allies, and established a network of authority that constrains American freedom of action. The former director of Israel's Mossad, Yossi Cohen, states that Soleimani's strategies have personally tightened a noose around Israel's neck. American generals describe him with grudging respect as a formidable adversary. For years, the question in Washington and Jerusalem has been the same. Should we eliminate Qassem's money? The debate is fierce. Some argue that eliminating such a high-ranking Iranian official would spark conflict. Others contend that Soleimani is too valuable a target to ignore. Throughout the 2010s, various elimination plots are proposed and rejected. Soleimani himself is aware of the threat. Israeli intelligence develops elaborate plans, including one to plant explosives near the grave of Soleimani's father. Mossad chief Yossi Cohen warns publicly that Soleimani understands his elimination is not impossible. But Soleimani continues his labor, seemingly fearless. He journeys between Tehran, Baghdad, Damascus, and Beirut, coordinating the axis of resistance. He convenes with militia commanders. He provides strategic direction for Iranian policy across multiple countries. Then, in late 2019, the situation commences to deteriorate. In Iraq, massive protests explode against government corruption and Iranian influence. Iraqi demonstrators, many of them Shia, who should theoretically support Iran, burn down the Iranian consulate in Najaf. They chant slogans against Iranian control of their country. In December, a militia from the Popular Mobilization Forces, the very organization Soleimani assisted establish, assaults an Iraqi base housing American contractors. One American is eliminated. 4 others are wounded. The United States responds with air attacks against militia positions, eliminating 25 fighters. Militia supporters storm the American embassy in Baghdad, breaching the outer perimeter before being advanced back. For an American president, the sight of an embassy under siege evokes terrible memories. The Iran hostage crisis of 1979. American intelligence reports that Soleimani is planning new assaults against American personnel in Iraq. The Pentagon presents Trump with alternatives, including the most extreme, eliminating Qasem Soleimani himself. According to multiple sources, military officials include this alternative, anticipating Trump to reject it and choose something less escalatory. Instead, Trump approves the attack. On January 2, 2020, Qasem Soleimani arrives at Baghdad International Airport on a commercial flight from Damascus or Beirut. He is in Iraq to convene with Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi. According to the Iraqi government, Soleimani is transporting Iran's response to a Saudi peace initiative, part of ongoing efforts to de-escalate regional tensions. His procession departs the airport around 1 a.m. local occasion. Traveling with Soleimani is Abu Mahi al-Mohandes, the deputy commander of the Popular Mobilization Forces, and one of the most powerful militia leaders in Iraq. American drones have been monitoring Soleimani's movements. The authorization from President Trump is transparent. The attack is authorized. At approximately 1 a.m. on January 3, 2020, American missiles obliterate Soleimani's procession. The explosions are massive, visible from miles away. When Iraqi security forces reach the scene, they discover carnage, bodies burned beyond recognition, automobiles reduced to twisted metal. Among the deceased is Qasem Soleimani, age 62, the individual described as the second most powerful figure in Iran, the designer of Iranian regional strategy, the obscurity commander who transformed the Middle East. His demise transmits shock tremors across the territory and the planet. Within hours, Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei declares 3 days of mourning. He vows severe revenge against those responsible. The response in Iran is overwhelming. Funeral processions are maintained in multiple municipalities: Baghdad, Karbala, Najaf in Iraq, then Az, Mashhad, Tron, and Kay in Iran. According to the BBC, millions of mourners participate in these processions, making them the largest since the funeral of Ayatollah Khamenei in 1989. In Tehran, Khamenei himself guides the funeral prayer, weeping over Soleimani's casket. The outpouring of grief is genuine. For many Iranians, Soleimani represented something larger than military success. He was the youth from destitution who became a general. He was the conflict hero who never forgot his roots. He was proof that the Islamic Revolution had produced something of worth. But the massive crowds in Kerman, Soleimani's hometown, guide to tragedy. On January 7th, the stampede eliminates at least 56 mourners and injures over 200. The burial must be delayed. When Soleimani is finally laid to rest, it is next to his fallen comrades from the Iran-Iraq conflict, as he had requested. His gravestone, simple and unadorned as he specified, reads only, Soldier Qasem Soleimani, without military rank or honorific titles. Iran's promised revenge arrives on January 8th. Iranian forces initiate missile assaults on 2 American bases in Iraq, Al-Assad Air Base and another facility in Erbil. Over a dozen ballistic missiles attack the bases. Remarkably, no Americans are eliminated, though more than 100 experienced traumatic brain injuries from the blasts. Many analysts assume Iran deliberately avoided causing American deaths to allow both sides to de-escalate. Trump tweets that all is well, effectively accepting the Iranian response as sufficient. The immediate crisis passes. There is no spiral into full-scale conflict, but Soleimani's elimination transforms the strategic landscape. Iraq's parliament passes a resolution calling for the withdrawal of American forces. While non-binding, it reflects growing Iraqi resentment of American actions on their soil. The counter-ISIS campaign is disrupted as the US-led coalition suspends operations to concentrate on force protection. Tensions between the United States and Iran reached their highest point since the 1979 revolution. 5 years afterward, in January 2025, Iran maintains massive commemorations for the 5th anniversary of Soleimani's demise. President Masoud Pezeshkian addresses crowds in Tehran, vowing to neutralize the enemy as sinister schemes and continue on the path of martyr Soleimani with strength. Commemorations are maintained not just in Iran, but in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Russia, and multiple other countries, a testament to the network Soleimani constructed. His popularity in Iran has only grown since his demise, particularly after the collapse of Assad's regime in Syria, highlighted the perceived failings of his successor, Esmail Ghani. The 6th anniversary in January 2026 observes even larger ceremonies with initiatives scheduled across 12 countries. Academic conferences analyze his strategy. Art exhibitions display his portraits. Blood donation drives and tree planting campaigns are organized in his memory. For Iran, Soleimani has become more than a military hero. He is a symbol of resistance against American and Israeli authority. But who is the real Qasem Soleimani? The answer depends entirely on perspective. For his supporters, he was a selfless warrior who devoted his existence to defending the oppressed, a humble individual who never forgot his origins in destitution, a strategist who constructed Iranian influence not through conquest, but through partnership and distributed ideology. For his enemies, he was a terrorist mastermind responsible for thousands of deaths, a manipulator who exploited sectarian divisions, an enabler of brutal dictators like Assad, a threat to regional stability and American interests. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the complex middle. Soleimani was undeniably brilliant as a military tactician and strategist. His capacity to construct and maintain networks across multiple countries, to coordinate diverse groups toward common objectives, to balance military action with political maneuvering places him among history's great strategic minds. He was also undeniably ruthless. The civilians eliminated in Syria with Iranian weapons, the American soldiers blown apart by Iranian-supplied bombs, the protesters crushed in Syria and Iraq with Iranian support. These deaths are part of his legacy, too. What made Soleimani exceptional was not moral superiority. From his childhood in destitution to his demise in an American drone attack, Soleimani remained fundamentally the same. An individual prepared to sacrifice everything for what he assumed in. As a teenager, he sacrificed his education to rescue his father from obligation. As a young Revolutionary Guard, he sacrificed safety for the revolution. As a general, he sacrificed conventional military career advancement to construct something unprecedented, a network of authority that extended Iranian influence across the Middle East without deploying Iranian forces of conquest. His legacy is still unfolding. The militias he armed and trained continue to shape events in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. The political networks he constructed remain influential. The strategy he pioneered, projecting authority through proxies rather than conventional force, has become the model for Iranian foreign policy. His successor, Hassani, attempts to maintain Soleimani's networks, but by all accounts lacks his predecessor's charisma and strategic vision. Meanwhile, Israel and the United States continue operations against Iranian influence in the territory, targeting weapons shipments, striking militia positions, attempting to roll back the gains solely achieved. The question that haunts policymakers in Washington, Tel Aviv, and Gulf capitals is whether they eliminated an individual or an idea. Soleimani is deceased, but the infrastructure he constructed, the partnerships he created, the strategy he pioneered, all of this survives. In the conclusion, Qasem Soleimani's narrative is a testament to how one individual, starting with nothing but determination and strategic vision, can reshape the geopolitics of an entire territory. From a forgotten settlement in the Iranian highlands, he rose to command the destinies of millions. He constructed an empire in the obscurity. He became the most hazardous general the Middle East had observed in generations. And when he ultimately stepped into the light, when his face became famous across the territory, when supporters celebrated him and enemies hunted him, he paid the ultimate cost. But even in demise, his obscurity remains cast long across the Middle East. A reminder that authority in the 21st century belongs not to those with the largest forces, but to those with the most strategic vision and the will to execute it. This was the concealed narrative of Qasem Soleimani, the youth from nowhere who became the individual who shook the